All right, let's get right into it. There is a hidden world in literally millions of our homes. It's a space we almost never see, but one that could be quietly messing with our health, our comfort, and yeah, our bank accounts. Today, we're going beneath the floorboards.
So, think about this for a second. We spend so much time and energy worrying about drafty windows or insulating the loft, but what if the real culprit, the number one source of all these problems,
has been right there the whole time, literally under the floor you walk on every single day? We are going to pull back the curtain on what's really going on in that hidden space. And trust me, it matters way more than you probably think.
What we're talking about here are suspended timber floors. If your house was built before, say, the 1970s, you very likely got one. It's basically just a wooden floor propped up on joists, which creates this gap, this void underneath. Now, back in the day, this was a great idea. It dealt with uneven ground and let moisture from the earth just kind of dissipate. But in our modern, more sealed-up homes, that void has turned into something else.
This description of that void is, well, it's pretty shocking, right? And look, these aren't my words. This comes straight from the research. A Petri dish with humidity levels that are just perfect for mold to start growing, which, by the way, kicks in around 70%, and for timber rot to get going, which starts around 80–90%. So yeah, this is not just some harmless empty space anymore.
So how does this hidden void actually impact you? Well, it really hits three key parts of your daily life: your bills, your comfort, and even your health. Let's break that down.
Okay, first up, your wallet. In older homes, up to a third of all the heat you pay for can just disappear right through an uninsulated floor. I mean, think about that. For every 3 pounds you spend on heating, one of them is just going straight into the ground. That's basically the same as leaving a giant window wide open all winter long.
Next up is comfort. If you've ever had that feeling of a constant, nagging chill in your home that you just can't shake, this is probably why. Air seeping in from that floor void can account for more than half of all the drafts in your house. That is more than your windows, your doors, and your roof combined. It's the number one reason you feel like you have to crank up the thermostat.
But beyond just being cold, we really need to talk about health. Because it's not just cold air coming up, it's a whole cocktail of nasty, invisible stuff. That damp Petri dish we mentioned, it's breeding fungal spores, sometimes up to 10 times more than what's in your actual living space. It's creating these musty-smelling gases, MVOCs, which are the source of that classic damp basement smell. And it's a direct pathway for naturally occurring radioactive radon gas to come up from the ground. All of this is getting into the air you and your family breathe.
Right, so the problem is pretty clear. The logical next thought is, okay, let's just insulate it. Simple, right? Well, for decades, that has been the big challenge, because the traditional ways of fixing this are, frankly, often a complete failure.
I mean, just listen to the old school process. You have to totally empty a room. Then you rip up the carpets. Then you have to physically pry up the floorboards one by one. Only then can you start stuffing insulation between the joists by hand before trying to put the whole jigsaw puzzle back together again. It is unbelievably disruptive.
And the real-world impact of that disruption is just staggering. It can take weeks, cost a small fortune, and the financial payback, it's often over 50 years. But you want to know the worst part? Studies have shown that these methods often deliver little, if any, measurable energy savings. It's a massive amount of pain for a very, very uncertain gain.
But the biggest, most critical flaw is this right here. Most of the traditional insulation materials, like mineral wool, are what we call vapor open. The best analogy is it's like wearing a woolly jumper in the fog. Sure, it keeps you warm, but all that dampness goes right through it. This insulation lets all that humid air from the void pass right through and then hit the cold underside of your floorboards, where it condenses. So you're trapping heat, but you're actually inviting moisture, which can just make rot and mold even worse.
So, if the old way is broken, what actually works? Well, the modern solution completely rethinks the problem. See, the key isn't just about adding some insulation. It's about creating a totally sealed, impenetrable barrier between that nasty void and your home.
An effective solution today has to do 3 things, and they are absolutely non-negotiable. First, it has to be completely airtight to stop all those drafts and pollutants in their tracks. Second, it has to be vapor impermeable, creating a true shield against damp air. And third, it has to be a great insulator, because that's what keeps the timber itself warm and dry, stopping condensation from ever even having a chance to form on it.
Now this is where the results get a little weird, in a good way. A case study found that after installing this kind of impermeable insulation, the humidity dropped, not just in the house, but in the underfloor void itself. Now, how is that possible? Well, because the insulation kept the floor warm, less heat radiated down into the void. That meant less moisture evaporated from the ground. It literally solved the damp problem at its source.
And the performance numbers? They're just as powerful. Unlike the wishy-washy savings from the old methods, university tests have proven that a properly sealed and insulated floor can slash a home's total heat loss by up to 24%. That's not just stopping a few drafts. That's a massive, measurable improvement in your home's energy efficiency.
And I cannot stress this enough, sealing the floor is only half the battle. You absolutely cannot do this without thinking about the bigger picture of how that void is meant to work. Safety has to be priority number one. This quote from the Building Research Establishment says it all, really. That void under your house needs to breathe. You know those little air bricks you see on the outside walls of your house? They are there for a very important reason, to create cross-ventilation that carries moisture away. If you block them, even after you've insulated the floor, you're just asking for trouble. You're trapping moisture and risking serious timber decay. So you insulate the floor, but you absolutely have to maintain the ventilation. And that ventilation is also essential for dealing with radon. Remember, this is a dangerous gas that naturally seeps up from the ground. And in homes with suspended floors, that void is the first place it gathers before it can make its way into your living areas.
This leads to what is basically a perfect two-part strategy for tackling radon. First, the airtight insulation acts as a massive barrier, blocking up to 98% of the gas from ever getting through. Then, for any tiny amount that might be left, that proper cross-ventilation acts as the second line of defense, safely sweeping it away. It's a real belt and braces approach, and it works.
So, to pull it all together, this is what a modern, best practice approach looks like. It always starts with a proper survey to see what's actually happening in the void. It absolutely demands that you make sure the ventilation is working correctly. Then, and only then, you apply an insulation that is both airtight and vapor impermeable. And finally, you check your work to verify it's performing the way it's supposed to. When it comes right down to it, the comfort, the efficiency, and the health of our homes isn't just about the rooms we see every day, but also about the hidden spaces we don't. And what we've learned here is that a huge part of a truly healthy home starts from the ground up, which really just leaves one final question for you to think about. What's really hiding under your floor?